goes.
Yep. I see it now.
Okay. Uh, in the Buddha Sutras, there's a lot about, in fact, the word Buddha himself means awakening or to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could understand that with that as kind of a basis, that the Western idea of getting a good night's sleep may not be held in high esteem. That in fact, the the concept or idea of being devoted to wakefulness is spread right throughout the sutras, and that we can in fact think of wakefulness is basically the same thing as mindfulness or sati,
Mm-hmm.
except that with sati it has that most important quality of to remember to wake up, to remember to be here now, to remember to not be lost in either daydreams or night dreams. And that the Buddha also talks about it in the sense, and in fact, when I first read this, I thought it was so funny. It really is right. He says is that the mind burns by day and smolders by night.
How do you mean exactly by the
It
smoldering?
means, well, the hindrances are the burning of the mind during the day, and then night dreams are the smoldering by night.
Okay.
So night dreams are basically the same thing as hindrances. Um, so um, not only is the concept of wakefulness tightly uh, bound with the idea of mindfulness and being here now and waking up to this present moment, but there are also a lot of passages, especially one paragraph, and I don't remember which sutta is in. I need to go look it up, and I just remembered that I don't remember what sutta is in when I was talking to Willie about it. But that particular passage in that particular sutta is talking about that as we're spending the night, we should not be thinking about, am I going to get a good night's sleep, but rather just laying here in bed and enjoying this present moment. How nice it is just to lay here in bed and be happy
Right.
with no place to go and nothing to do. Instead of thinking, oh, I've got to get to sleep, I've got to get 8 hours sleep, you can think of, oh, I've got no place to go for the next 8 hours. Well, I can just lay here for the next 8 hours and have a ball.
Yeah,
You can-
that's sort of what was going on. I was just sort of getting impatient about lying around because I wanted to like just sleep.
right, that's because sleep for you is a goal.
Mm,
And it's because you've been told that you're supposed to sleep in the night rather than letting the sleep come naturally. And what you can also understand is that the more progress you're making with your sitting meditation, then the more difficult it will be for you to get to sleep. Why is that? Because of the budding mindfulness. Your wakefulness
yeah.
is improving.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I definitely, especially in periods when I practice quite a lot, sleep sort of goes down quite a bit. But I find I
Part
need
of that
less
is because you don't need it
sleep. Yeah.
as to whatever benefit. Now, this also fits in with other teachings of the Buddha so that when you get a bit here and a bit there and a bit there and a bit there and put these pixels together, you can begin to see that there's quite an interesting mosaic. So now I
Mhm.
want to mention to you about the four postures, which you probably heard about. Do you
Yep.
know what I mean by the four postures?
Yeah, standing, sitting, walking, and lying down.
Lying down, right. Okay, so what do we do lying down?
we lose our mindfulness and go to sleep.
That's what the West wants you to do. They want you to be up and alert tomorrow morning so that they can put you back to work and make some more money off of you and pay you half what you're worth. That's our society that we live in. Except in Australia, they don't even pay you half what you're worth. So, the way that we approach mindfulness needs to be a little bit different. So let's go back to those 4 postures. Each of the postures has kind of a style. So when we think of the Buddha's sitting posture, we normally are not thinking about an overstuffed couch or a beach recliner. All right? So when we're laying down, we should also kind of think of it in that same respect, that there's a particular posture to lie in. In fact, if you're Googling, Google reclining Buddha.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, right now.
Sure. I just have to move you off my computer. Usually pop you up on my laptop because it's convenient stand. Sorry, one sec.
Yeah, so Google reclining Buddha and then click on images.
All right, I'll just hold it. Image. The side one, like this. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, that's what we're going for.
Right.
All right. In this particular one that you've got there, notice that the knees are bent a little bit, that one leg or one foot is wrapped over the other so that it's not perfect, that he does have his head inclined, and in this particular version, he's laying on his right side.
Yeah.
This is the reclining posture of the Buddha, but if you go through more of it, you'll see that occasionally you'll see a bodhisattva laying on his left side. So left and right is not so much different. But the values of laying on the side is that it's actually hard to breathe if you're laying on your stomach. It's also not good for the back and hard for the back to lay on the back side. That it's actually better to lay on the side. And in fact that's true. The harder the surface, then the more necessary it is to sleep on one side as opposed to sleeping on the back. So
I thought it was bad for your shoulder to sleep on your side.
Pardon?
I thought it was bad to sleep on your shoulder. Bad for your shoulder to sleep on your side.
Well, look at the image that he has there, and you'll see that it's not much of a problem. In fact, they have these 3-cornered pillows in Asia, and that particular view that you gave me showed you one of these 3-cornered pillows. So this is common throughout the world. You're the first person I've ever heard mention about it being not good for the shoulders. But it's especially good for pregnant women to sleep on her side. All right, so now that we know that we've got a pose or a posture that's useful or valuable, now all we have to do is not only lay down in that posture, but we also cultivate the strong determination, the intention, to stay in that posture throughout the night. And also have the mental attitude that, hey, if I find the body out of this posture, I'm going to wake up just enough to get back into this posture. that begins to make the sleep a lot lighter. So we have to
Okay.
have that strong intention that we're going to keep the body in that posture of the lion, which actually has got the word lion's pose, the lion's posture. Now, in fact, dogs, when they're laying on their side, dogs lay in that lion's posture too, but it wouldn't be quite remarkable if we said the dog's posture. So we'll call it the lion's posture. But it has the quality of laying on one side, which it promotes the breathing and promotes many other bodily functions. In fact, it's said that sleeping on the left side is even more beneficial because of the way that the heart operates.
Yeah, because I think I read Thanisru Bhikkhu talk about it. One side it has puts your organs upside down or something. I think that was what he said it was about.
Yes, but there is superstitions because the Buddha talked about it being on the right side. There are some superstitions about it being wrong to sleep on the left side. But with
Right.
modern, let's say, medicine, they have demonstrated that no, there's no really big difference between the left and the right side. But the value is to not sleep on your chest, to not sleep on your back.
Okay.
Then, in fact, when people sleep on their back, they wind up with back trouble.
Okay.
So the intention now is to treat the whole night a bit differently than
Right.
the Western mentality, which was basically the first thing you said was you weren't getting much sleep during the past couple of nights, and my answer to that was good. And so we're going to have to go a little bit deeper into that whole rationale. And I don't mind doing that with you now. I just covered much of this with Willie, but at a let us say a deeper level because this is his second talk with this subject. And in fact, how our talk began was is he was saying that hey, he was actually able to become mindful while he was in the dream.
Oh.
That he actually woke up during the dream state, was mindful during the dream, and was actually able to control it. And he was howling with laughter over the ability to be mindful during his dreaming. And it again, it starts with the intention of the posture. But there's another way of approaching it. Rather than thinking that you need sleep, go with the idea that all you need is to get a good night,
Mm-hmm.
not a good night's sleep. Think about it like that. And all you need is a good night. You don't need a good
Right.
night's sleep. To have a good night means that it's an enjoyable night and that it's valuable and that the mind can be free from hindrances as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
caught in a dream state. Now, also think of it like this that there's three layers of sleep there's light sleep, there's REM sleep, which is where all the dreaming happens, and then there's deep therapeutic sleep. And that what we want to be able to do is spend the appropriate amount of time in deep sleep
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to come out of it easily, to not
Mm-hmm.
get caught. In other words, if a noise happens in the room, if something happens in the room, we want to be able to wake up completely, to not wake up merely to the point of dreaming. That in fact,
Mm-hmm.
if someone's already dreaming and they have a noise or something happens in the room, they'll actually take that event and put it into their dream and dream right along without
Mm-hmm.
waking up. And it may be a robber in the room. And if there's a robber in the room, you need to stop dreaming about whatever's in the room and making up stories about yourself. You need to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of looking at it. But you see, in our society, it's gotten that the daytime is the time for you to work because you can see. You can work out in the fields or you can work in the factories or whatever like that. And then therefore you're supposed to sleep at night. But that's not the way that humans have been living for so many hundreds of centuries. That in fact, humanity came out of the tropics, and most of humanity lives in the tropics.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the tropics, it gets really hot in the afternoon, and this is what gives rise to the idea of siestas. And as far as I know, it's true in every country that has hot afternoons. It's not just the Mexicans that have siestas, it's hot afternoon people who have siestas, and that's especially true here in Thailand. In fact, I
Mm-hmm.
learned all about it that the Wat tends to clean out and there's nobody around in the afternoons. Everybody's either gone home or gone to their cootie to take a nap. And then things begin to start up again after 4 in the afternoon. Also, within the Buddha's context, there is a, um, let us say, we'll call it a ceremony. And that is that, and some temples do it every month. Some only do it on particular holidays, and some temples do it as often as twice a month. But at Wat Suan Mok, every month was a month with a night for everyone to sit up all night long. I also remember doing that in the United States, to where at that particular point in time in the U.S. is not only was dozens of monks, there were literally hundreds of lay people all sitting up all night long together. And they would intersperse it with a Dhamma talk, and then a sit, and then um, a question and answer, and then a sit, and then some chanting, and then some more sits. At Wat Suan Mok, it was primarily dominated by Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. He would come on at about 2 o'clock, and he would not shut up until it was time for the monks to go for Pendabat and for breakfast. And he would, at least once a month, give at least a 4 hour talk. And people would sit up and listen to it. Others would just merely sit in meditation. Other times we would sit all night also, especially if it were a particular uh, holiday or something like that. But normally it would be on some Buddha day or another. So when you take these things, like having naps in the afternoon, plus actual practices that Buddhists have, and we've had them all over the place. I've seen them in Laowats. In fact, I just spoke with Pablo on Skype, and currently he's at Wat Dam Kiem, which is kind of a satellite temple for Wat Suan Mok, and the abbot there is doing that process, and Pablo was just talking about his experience of sitting up all night with the other monks and lay people. Said that there was about 8 at that particular temple doing that practice. So this is something that's part of the practice, and that it has to do with not that we're going to do that only once a month, but that this is when we do it all together. But that the whole idea is not so much sleeping at night as just having a good night. Because
Right.
part of the sleeping that you're going to be doing was an afternoon nap that you probably had. Then, in fact, the day of the night, then people are going to sit up for listening to Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. The temple really is empty because everybody's taking a nap that afternoon. And also the next day after, right after breakfast, the place tends to clean out. Everybody's going to have a morning nap the next day. And so and what this has to do with is it actually breaks up the habit patterns of the mind so that we begin to start to become a little bit alert and a little bit aware and not so much dreamy more and more often. It's a waking up process. Because what the
Okay.
dream state is nothing but just a continuance of the hindrances that we burn by day and then we smolder by night in the dream state. And the dream state itself, they have proven with scientists, with all their MRIs and sleep therapies and all this kind of stuff, that REM sleep is not restorative.
Yeah.
It's not restorative. Therefore, spending time in dream state is not a good idea. And yet, most of the time that people spend, they'll be dreaming. They call it REM because the word REM is rapid eye movement, that the eyes will actually be active. You can tell when people are dreaming if their eyes are moving. Now, the eyes are not always moving, but that's just an indication. So, what we need to do then is develop a method of sleeping so that we can consciously go into the very deepest sleep and then be able to come out of that deep sleep easily. All right. Now, in the really, really primitive times, even after we developed fire, human beings, in fact, could not go to northern climes without fire. Animal skins were not enough. So we never did inhabit things until after we got fire going. But after we got fire going, then we realized that somebody's got to stay up in the night to relight the fire. We're all going to freeze to death by 6 a.m. So that's one of the things about staying up at night is that it's safety. Also, if you're a monkey in a tree in a nest, if the limb that you're sleeping on starts to wiggle and move, you'd better wake up. Because you may be sharing your limb with a cat, a big one, who's looking for a nighttime meal. All right, so there's this whole idea then about nest, and what humans have done is we have so successfully made our nests safe that now we kind of forget all about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're let us say, locked into this mentality that I've got to get so much sleep. Now, I remember doing marathons from time to time where work for 36 hours, maybe 40 hours in a row because of some project that I cared about or whatever, and get into a state that was very tired, but difficult then to get out of. Can't go to sleep and whatnot like that. But that was when I was a very young man. But there's also the possibility of an insomniac, someone who can't sleep. But what they're doing in bed is that they're just locked in the hindrances, and so they're thinking about it. And one of the thoughts that they will have occasionally is, I should get to sleep. And then they'll start to think about something else, and they'll burn and they'll burn and they'll burn and they'll burn. And maybe they'll go to sleep, and then they'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking that they haven't been sleeping at all. And
Right.
so they are getting some sleep, but they don't know it because they're just out of it, and basically they're lost in mental space.
Right.
The mind is not awake, not alert. And so these kind of people then will say, like you were saying, that you're getting no sleep at all, and then you're feeling drowsy, you're feeling tired, you're feeling listless, and all of that, because basically you haven't been getting the kind of sleep that you need. But you've been getting sleep. It's just not the kind that's useful.
Right.
So now let's go to the Zendo and think about what's going on over there. Because the Zen master there, he's going to be up in the night, and he's going to be walking into the dormitory with a Zen stick. Guess who gets hit?
The one asleep?
The one who doesn't know he's there. The one who did not wake up when the Zen master snuck into the bedroom. Okay, this is that quality of Zen mixed with ninja. And if you've got a ninja in the room, if you're a ninja warrior in training and you have a real ninja warrior come into the bedroom while you're there in the night, you ought to know it. You ought to know he's in there. All right. So here we go. We're talking about a different quality of sleep now. We're talking about laying in a particular posture, maintaining that posture, so that when we lose our mindfulness, or let us say, when the body is so deathly asleep that the posture changes, our job is merely to recognize that the posture has changed, almost as if at night when you're asleep, we use the body for the same method that we have for the breath during your sitting meditation. Is when the mind wanders away from the breath, never mind, start again, come back to the
Right.
breath. All right, in the night when the body shifts its posture, never mind, recognize it, and go back into the right posture and continue on with your sleeping. You don't even have to
Right.
wake up completely, but you do become kind of mindful in a new way. This is a new kind of training, but this is one of the four postures for training that the Buddha has. The standing meditation, just as a bit, is all about. I would go so far as to say it's possible that military standing at attention was borrowed from the Buddha, because that's what standing meditation is to be able to stand in a particular posture that's relaxed, that you can stand in without moving for a long period of time.
Sort of
And
like qigong, where you just stand in that one posture without moving, and then trying to stay there, basically.
yes, it's actually very good to practice this while you're standing in line. For instance, at the bank or at the newsstand or going onto the train or whatever like that. There's a time for standing in line. And you'll notice how nervous, tense, unhappy people are.
Mm-hmm.
The standing in line is a madhouse, and everybody's house goes mad, especially the one above the nose. But the whole house goes nuts too. You can see it because of the way people are fidgeting. The
Mm.
question is, can you just merely stand there? And that's especially true for standing and waiting for Achan Po, because many times the Thai people will crowd around him and the Farang are in the back, and the right thing to do is to not fidget, but to just stand, because Achan
Mm-hmm.
Po is noticing. He's watching. And so
Okay.
being able to stand and hold one's posture is a good training,
Mm-hmm.
so that we become mindful of the body in all of our postures. And this is part of the waking up process, to become mindful of the positions and the postures of the body, even while you're standing in line,
Right.
or even while you're laying in bed, worrying about not getting to sleep. Only I would highly recommend don't worry about not getting to sleep and enjoy the fact that you're not asleep.
Right.
The next thing would be is that if there's any noises that happen in the night, you should want to know them. For instance, if you sleep in the same room with someone else, if there's any comings and goings in the room, you should be alert to that, to know it. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about Tam, is that when I come into the room when she's sleeping, she wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she'd ever had that training, but that's just what she does.
Mm-hmm.
She's very attuned to me, I think. So this is a way of spending your nights, which is
Mm-hmm.
completely different than the way that you've been doing it before. And it's also part of the practice. So while you're laying in bed at night, cleaning the mind out of the hindrances is a really good idea, because otherwise, if you go to sleep with the idea that you've got to get up to work tomorrow because this, that, and the other has to be done, now you're caught into hindrance. And as you go to sleep, if you go to sleep in hindrance, you'll just go to sleep in the dream state. It's much better to go to sleep while you're mindful, so that as you're mindful, you can go directly into deep levels of sleep, and then be able to come back out of them without getting caught in the dream state again.
All right.
This is one of the reasons why Buddha and the Buddhist, let us say the Dhamma dudes, we don't spend much time thinking about dreams. You see in Christianity with Joseph and his coat of many colors and laying down on a rock and sleeping and having dreams. Or how about the dream of riding a horse to Jerusalem and then into heaven and back and all kinds of stuff. Really weird dreams that people have had. But within Buddhism, the idea is to come out of dreams, because we see dreams as just nothing but a wandering mind.
Right.
Pay no significance to it.
Okay.
Okay. So dreams are, but instead of thinking that the dream itself is significant, instead think about, oh, my job is that if I can catch myself dreaming, I'm going to at least wake up enough to where I can manage and control this dream.
Yeah.
But it's not going to go off on its own. It's not going to create a tiger or a monster. It's not going to have the house burned down. And so if there's any dreams that have any personifications like an animal or a monster, or sometimes even a big structure like a big building or whatever, the idea is to name it, to give it a name, to have a conversation with it, to take control over it.
This sort of sounds like, do you know about that Tibetan practice, dream yoga?
No, but if they're doing this, then they're practicing the methods of the Buddha.
Well, yeah, it's pretty much what you've just, I haven't heard too much of it, but it sounds much the same. You're supposed to just come to wake up in the dream, and it's just about and then I think like you described, I think they even work on being aware even in deep sleep or too deep sleep. Can't remember which.
Your mindfulness will go to that level. Practicing mindfulness this way, and you can have a certain awareness that is, let us say, much more alert than the normal deep sleep that people are in, mostly because of that layer of REM sleep or dreaming sleep will cover it over. So, in fact, if somebody does come into the room, like the Zen master, and the student is not doing his mindfulness work for sleeping, then he'll just have a dream that the master is in the bedroom. And that's when he gets hit by the real master, is because he was dreaming that it was the master in the room, instead of saying, wait a minute, if I'm in a dream that the master's in the room, hey, wait a minute, I better wake up right now because he's here.
So just because I interrupted you, what were you saying about naming the creature and talking to it?
This is actually coming out of the American Indian tradition.
Okay.
When young braves would have nightmares, they would normally have nightmares about being chased by some animal.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what primitive kinds of people do. And so they would go to the shaman about the night dreams that they were having, and the shaman would say, okay, you have to give this animal, your monster, a name.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to address it by name and start talking to it by name while it's there in the dream. And if you can do that, then you can begin to manage and control that monster so it's not a monster anymore. He becomes your friend or your ally. Oh, and by the way, if you're into Carlos Castaneda enough, do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the name, yeah. I
Yeah,
know the name.
okay. Carlos Castaneda also talks about this in one of the four of his books. Only he was doing that with drugs.
Mm.
But it also applies to night dreams. If the monster comes while you're having a drug overdose or whatever, then you have to name it. You have to name this enemy. You have to call it by name. You have to confront it openly and directly, and
Right.
then only then will it become an ally. So long as you're afraid of it, you'll never be able to control it.
Okay.
And so, like I
So
said, you can see in this regard, Buddhism doesn't hold much for dream work. We don't care about it. We want to come out of these dream states
yeah.
to literally be able to wake up in the dream enough to start taking control of the dream.
Right.
The first thing we do is identify the protagonist. Why
Me.
are we having this dream? What or who is in this dream that's causing me to have a dream? Is it a bear, a lion, the devil? Is that it's the project tomorrow?
So do you know about wake-induced lucid dreaming?
Yes, that's basically nothing but a dream that you remember because it was lucid. The
Right.
question is, can you take control over it?
Yeah.
Not whether it's lucid or not.
So the
That oftentimes what happens when a dream is lucid has to do with how long ago it was that the dream occurred before we wake up and remember the dream. If
yeah.
we just have the dream and somebody wakes us up right in the middle of the dream, then we can recollect it really easily. But if you have the dream at 2 in the morning and then you wake up at 7, it's 5 hours since you've had that dream and it's not lucid anymore. You may have even forgotten that you did have a dream.
So I just asked because if you're from what I understand, I used to read about lucid dreaming when I was younger. From what I understand, if I'm say lying on my side in this strong determination sort of sitting or laying posture,
Right.
and you
Reclining, they
don't
call
move.
it the reclining Buddha.
If I'm laying in the reclining Buddha, and I'm not moving and I'm just sort of being mindful, eventually my body will go into sleep paralysis, and then you start having sort of odd, things going on as you go into the dream state, and then following that you go into deep sleep because you go like from waking REM to deep sleep. Yeah,
Hmm.
is that sort of
And
something I should be
right.
expecting to happen, or is that not really the point?
Well, I would expect that the right intention would be is as you're going to sleep, you know that you're going to sleep, that you can feel that paralysis coming on, and that you invite it.
Mm-hmm.
And that as you go down, because you've already been mindful and is not caught in hindrances, we expect you to not spend much time in the REM state, to go directly into the deep sleep, something that's
Right.
restorative and useful and valuable without going into the REM sleep. So, if someone does, let us say from a particular point in time until 30 minutes later, one is asleep. The two processes would be one is someone stays mindful for 29 minutes, falls into the dream state only for 1 minute or less, and then goes in directly into a deep sleep. And the other person goes quickly because they're tired. They lay down, they go to sleep, and then they spend an hour or two in REM before they go into the deep sleep.
Okay.
Okay? So, if we can spend very little time in REM, then that means that the sleep that we do get is more deeper, more restorative, and therefore we don't need so many hours. And also we have the ability to break it up so that we can take a nap during the day, or uh, even what is normally called a cat nap, which is a really good thing to develop. Some of the people who have been famous, in fact, I think they did this a lot back in the 1940s. And the way that JFK would do this would be that he would take his shoe off and then hold the shoe by just his middle finger, just the lip of the finger on the back of the shoe. And he'd hold the shoe like that. And he'd let himself go to sleep while he was in the back of the car or at his desk or wherever he was until the shoe dropped. Because the shoe dropping meant that he had now gone into deep REM sleep, or not REM sleep, but gone into the deep sleep. The body had relaxed, and that enough was restorative. So by the time that the finger relaxed and the shoe hit the floor and he heard the sound and woke up, that amount of sleep was useful, restorative.
Okay.
Just a small cat nap. Now, if you're on guard duty, don't do this.
Yeah, a bit dangerous.
But there are other times during the day that you can just just relax. You don't have to use the shoe trick, but just let yourself go into a deep, thoughtless state, or thoughtless in the sense of paying attention to the body, just simply getting a deep relaxation.
Yeah.
All right. Because that's more of what we need than REM sleep. We don't need REM sleep. In fact, REM sleep is dangerous in many cases. One of them is we may start believing our dreams. That can be really dangerous. Another one is that the house can be on fire, and instead of getting up and putting the fire out, we dream about the house being on fire. We dream about getting up and putting the fire out while the actual house is still burning. That's the value of dreams.
Or it's like the dreams where people have where they get up to go to the toilet or something, and then they wake up and they've wet the bed. That's
Yes,
quite a common one with kids.
with kids, exactly. Exactly the case. Exactly. We think that we're in the bathroom, and so we go ahead and let it go. We were asleep, dreaming we were in the bathroom. Exactly so. I'll have to remember that one. That's a really good example.
Um. So last time we spoke, we said we'd talk about the five aggregates.
Okay.
But I watched two of your guided meditations with some other of your students, and I wanted to ask a little bit about what you sort of said initially, because I found it interesting. So you said leading up to the one with Zan's and the other one with I can't remember his name. You said, now I don't know if I've misinterpreted this, but you said these are what traditionally are called hypnosis techniques, but I seem to have took from that these are also techniques, Buddhist techniques as well, or is it actually you were using hypnosis techniques to help just get into the meditation?
I would say it like this, and I if anyone disagrees by seeing this video, please comment on it so that we can figure out. But from what I understand, in the old days, that there was not generally guided meditations. They didn't exist. It wasn't until modern times that guided meditations were done, but we already knew quite a lot about hypnosis. because hypnosis really came onto the stage in the middle 1800s with Mesmer and magnets. And basically what they were doing was they were experimenting with the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean by the placebo effect?
Yeah, it's like when you believe something's happening to you, so you like sort of fabricate psychosomatic effects. Like if you get told that this sugar pill is actually a very powerful amphetamine, you'll be all like, oh, I'm all jittery. And
What the placebo effect proves is two things. One, it proves the power of the mind over matter. Things really are psychosomatic. Mind, body. That word psychosomatic is exactly what that means. That's the one thing that it does prove. But it also proves something else, and that is how weak it is. There's not a strong connection because placebos only work under certain conditions. And if you set up the conditions in a certain way, you can get up to 28% of the people you've been lying to that will believe your lies strong enough that they actually get benefit. But that placebo effect can be driven up, sometimes to very, very high levels. For instance, this drug that we're going to give you, an intravenous drip.
right?
And we're also going to be monitoring the heart and all kinds of stuff. So here they do. They, in fact, and I'll do the second part later. But these research will put the patient into a real hospital, in a real hospital bed with real drip of saline solution and absolutely nothing else, telling them that it's an absolute miracle drip that we're giving you that's going to cure you of cancer. And they can drive that placebo effect up as high as 45, sometimes 50%. I've heard of some experiments that haven't been reproduced well, as high as 65%.
Wow.
That's how strong psychosomatic really is if you can really convince the person of it. Okay, so now we're beginning to understand the power of hypnosis, which is nothing but the power of suggestion. Now, I recently saw a snippet of a movie, and the situation was such that this guy woke up out of a coma. And he woke up out of a coma, and he had been in that coma for literally weeks. And he watches television, and on television, they see the destruction of several big cities like New York and London and Paris are just wiped out completely. And he's seeing that, and Wolf Blitzer comes on the air and whatnot like that. So this guy's completely convinced that all of this stuff is happening. And the doctors want him to do something like give him a particular code about where the next bomb is going to go off or something like that. And when this guy gets what he wants, and they are able to get the information from him that they need in a very dramatic fashion, they pull the whole the whole hospital room apart to find out that he's just on a sound stage, and they have tricked him with every bit of it, including the fact that they had hired Wolf Blitzer to come on air to do this stuff just so he would believe it. And it was a 100% scam. But he was absolutely convinced. And then he found out that he had only been out for a couple of hours and it hadn't been 2 weeks at all. They lied to him. All right. So here is what we're talking about is the root or the basis of hypnosis. And it is the root and the basis of guided meditation. Okay? And in one of the qualities of guided meditation is that the guide of meditation is eventually going to shut up for long periods of time and not say anything. If you see a guided meditation, you'll see that that's one of the qualities, that after a while, the guide is not saying much. He's already created the situation for the person to deal with. One of the things then we start using is various techniques that have a particular flavor to them. One is, instead of putting people in a hot place, in other words, we don't say, imagine that you're on a desert. Oh
Mhm.
no, we either put them in a cave, or if they're Christians, we put them in a cathedral, or if they're good Buddhist students, we put them in an ice cave.
To make them feel cool and relaxed.
To make them feel cool and relaxed. And the word nibbana is the word for cool in Pali
Right.
language. And so we create coolness. And so we have the quality of going down in the mind, like taking it down in an elevator. Imagine yourself, in every floor you go down, the mind is getting more and more and more settled. Well, while you're talking the student through these things, he's paying attention to what we're doing, and his mind is not scatterbrained anymore. So that's the quality of these guided meditations. That
Because I
really, a really excellent guided meditation has very few words in it.
just enough to get the student's mind out of its own way.
To help the student get his own mind out of his own way, so that they can feel comfortable and content and happy. And if you're doing it one on one, especially when I was doing the one with Zan's, if you start watching his breath, you'll begin to see when I start talking again, because I'm watching his breath. And when his breath starts to become irregular or disturbed, that's when I start talking again. So long as his breath is slow and rhythmic, then I will be quiet. So in fact, it needs to really be done one on one.
Right.
It's hard to hypnotize a whole crowd. One of the ways, by the way, of hypnotizing people is not only getting them to be completely relaxed, but also getting them stressed out. This
Right.
is this is how stage magic works. If you call somebody cold out of the audience, they're going to come up on stage with great hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing you'll have them do is clucking like a chicken while everybody is laughing, because they feel under stress and they get talked into doing things because of the placebo effect, which means that the stage magician, he has to know who to bring out of the audience. He can't bring everybody out of the audience. The more
So
skeptical you are, the less he wants you on his stage.
right. Interesting.
However, guided
So
meditations have some value, but not a lot. That's why I don't do them often. Basically, what I want to do with a guided meditation is to help the students to stop practicing old bad habits and start picking up new good habits that are going to be useful and valuable for their meditation practice, in the sense of developing skills, to remember, to keep coming back. And so when the student goes into hindrances, you can see that in his breath, and so you can bring him back to the meditation. Now, if I can bring a student back to the meditation within a minute, then we're getting somewhere. Because otherwise, the beginning student, if he's doing it wrong, he will let his mind wander away for 10 or 15 minutes, getting no value out of his meditation at all. But if you can bring them back and bring them back and bring them back, and then their breath starts to change, and you bring them back again, over and over again like that, then the meditation itself will be valuable. But if the student is already practicing enough to where his breath is good, there's nothing to say. That's what a guided meditation should be. Now, at a deeper level of guided meditation, one like the one that Goenka does, that he's teaching the students to scan through the body, starting at the top of the head, moving around the face, down the area, down one arm, down another arm, throughout all of the body, down into the lower parts, down to the legs, down to the feet. And this is a good thing to wake them up. Now, if I just tell you how to do that, you won't do it because it takes a long time and it's a lot of work and you forget about it and your mind is not sharp anyway. So that needs to be done in a guided meditation to get the students to actually go through one complete scan of the body. It's going to take 5, 10, 15 minutes to get through there the first time. But after you become expert at doing that, you can just simply start at the top of the head, and as you're breathing in, the whole body just comes into play. But you cannot get that unless you can practice it piece by piece, part by part. And many students can't do that without the guided meditation of having the instruction step by step, do this, do that, do the next thing, and don't get lost in the process. So that would be a different kind of guided meditation that would be used for different purposes.
Righty.
Okay.
Yep, that's cool. I was just curious about that because I did those as well, and I thought they were quite cool. And I started doing the I like the ice cave and down the thing. It's quite imaginative because I like the imaginative methods quite a lot. It's quite fun.
Enjoy.
Mm.
Okay, and so because you already know about those online, we don't need to do it. Instead, I'll give you all of the framework behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That yes, I was actually trained as a hypnotist.
Oh, interesting.
That's why I know so much about it. I was into all that kind of stuff at one time. Yeah, I was trained in Detroit by
When did you do that?
76, 75, something like that.
Huh. Because I've been reading a book about hypnotism for a little while, and I thought it was quite interesting because at the core of it, it seems like it's just the book I'm reading seems to say it's just pretty much focus and absorption in a thing that you believe in or whatever, and it's like a lot of it is just sort of imagination, really, and it kind of reminds me of just doing like a more imaginative meditation like Thanis Rubiku's, where you just breathe into body parts and relax the body parts.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that would be a Vipassana meditation, is going actually through the various body parts. You could actually expand that so that we could incorporate more of the body. I mean, not more of the body, but more than just the body, in the sense of, well, it's a little bit hard because we don't want to invite the student to go into hindrance.
Right.
But as a meditation guide, we need to know if the student is in fact going into hindrance so that we can invite them out of it to come back into the meditation, whatever it is. And so if it's a sequential meditation, like going through the parts of the body, more than likely the student is going to, because there's a constant talking, that the student is not going to let his mind wander away so much with that. But with that meditation that I was doing with Zen, you do want to be quiet, because the whole thing is to allow the student long enough to have the mind to wander away so that then you can bring them back again. That's what the beginner's meditation is all about. But the students don't need that. They can do that themselves. You don't need a guide. That in fact the danger is if I start doing a whole lot of guided meditations, then the students will start thinking that they're dependent upon my guided meditations and know how wonderful it is, my meditation, when I listen to him talk, and when he's not talking, I have nothing. Well, then what's the point? So they have limited value.
Right. That's what I've seen most people say online as well. It's supposed to just be to that, like what you said, help you get into the swing of it, and then you should practice without them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so that's the better way of looking at. All right. Well, I tell you what. Let's do the 5 aggregates next time.
Next time?
Yeah, because they're due, and it's going to take me at least this much time. We've already spent an hour, and it's going to take me more than an hour to go through the 5 aggregates.
Yeah, no worries.
So we'll just talk and say that today was all about dreaming.
Yeah. All good.
You're good.
I'll call it.
Okay, we'll call in a few days, or yeah, right. Continue on with your practice, and we'll do the 5 aggregates.
Looking forward to it.
All righty. We'll see you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.